You arrive home from a yard sale run by that creepy witch lady. You got a vintage cartridge of your favorite childhood game, Fast Jumping Hedgehog Plumber, for basically nothing. The seller seemed way too eager to give it away, and warned you about vague stuff, but you didn't remember because the 12-year-old author doesn't have enough attention span for continuity in this story. Upon closer examination, you notice something is off. Hedgehog Plumber looks strange and almost evil on the cover. Ignoring this, you boot up your console, your knob moist and hard from excitement, and things were normal at first. All of the sudden, the music becomes distorted, and fast-jumping Hedgehog Plumber stares directly at you with his mouth open as hyper-realistic blood pours from his eyes and mouth. Can anyone tell me what just went wrong here? You were almost trapped inside of a poorly written video game creepypasta. Now you're probably asking yourself, what even is creepypastas? A creepypasta is defined as a horror-related legend that has been copied and pasted around the internet. Let's go through some examples. First up, of course, is the unofficial no-face of the creepypasta genre, Jeff the Killer. Jeff is a mentally unstable, incredibly violent man with a bleached white face extensively damaged by burns. He has no eyelids and carved off his lips and sections of his cheeks in the shape of a Joker smile like an r/nice guy that took his misguided admiration for a fictional character way too far. Jeff's favorite activity is a good old-fashioned, uncontrollable, psychotic episode characterized by extreme violence. He waits at night in a sleeping victim's bedroom, and if they awake, he says go to sleep and does them the stab. I've always wondered, would he not kill them if they slept through the night? Like, would he just do it in the morning? Like, would he make increasingly louder noises until they woke up? Hey! What? Go to sleep. How do you expect me to sleep with Uncanny Valley Ronald McDonald screaming and stabbing me? How are you still alive? My cartoon, my rules. I remember being a 9-year-old Xbox Live squeaker when reading this story. This was back when you had to go to creepypasta.com or some other website and actually read the things, instead of having it spoon-fed into our collective no-attention span having faces. The next creepypasta I'm spoon-feeding into your face is Subject 3 from the Harbinger experiment. This creature came into existence when one Dr. Zimmerman undertook some shady experimentation to try to eliminate the divide between our world and the metaphysical. He used human test subjects in hopes that entities from the metaphysical would latch onto them and manifest in our dimension. You're gonna have to suspend disbelief for the story, but it's a good listen. After Zimmerman did his spooky mad scientist thing, the video monitor for test subject 3 lost picture. Upon the video returning, instead of the regular pink flabby human in the subject's jumpsuit that was there before, staring directly into the camera were two solid black eyes twice the size of regular human eyes. The creature they belonged to was completely hairless with silky smooth and unnaturally clear skin. It had grown quite a bit in size with an enlarged head and elongated limbs. This creature has its own soundtrack, Living in the Sunlight by Tiny Tim. I'd play it, but I don't want to risk throwing a week's worth of internet monies at Tiny Tim's grave. This is the same song from SpongeBob when he makes all those burgers for those anchovies. That's all I could think of whenever the scientists were fearing for their lives while living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Bumped in the back. Whatever this thing is, it's got a sick, twisted sense of humor, and we're in on the joke. This thing somehow shuts down the power to disable the magnetic locks on the door, bursts into the room while the scientists are evacuating, with Tiny Tim bumping harder than dubstep from a chubby kid's Yui boom, rips Dr. Zimmerman clear in half like the smaller prisoner's rectum, and does a magic trick where he turns all the scientists running the experiment into corpses. The next killer on the list is Eyeless Jack. Eyeless Jack is a male humanoid figure wearing a black hoodie. He dons a blue mask with no visible eyes or mouth holes. The only visible features on his visage are a set of empty gouged out eye sockets that continually leak a thick black ooze. You'll know if you've been visited by Eyeless Jack if you've had your kidney cut out and you've been sewn up with medical precision, all while you're still asleep. If the victim finds their kidney again, it has a bite out of it and is covered in a thick black film of sludge that looks the same as the liquid oozing from Jack's face holes. There is a backstory that shows him before his murderous rampages is a college student who was made this way by a cult. The original, and in my opinion, the better version, leaves him shrouded in mystery, making him that much more intriguing. We get it, you're trying to make him relatable, but the whole cool thing about him was that he was this alien, intriguing being fueled by mystery. Giving him a background just turns him back into a regular crazy person. If I wanted to deal with boring regular crazy people, I wouldn't be trying to escape reality by reading a creepypasta. Next up is the rake. Rake with a K. You should be on this list, you monster. The rake is 6 feet long from head to foot and moves around on all fours. Its eyes are sunken into their sockets, and it has an animal-like mouth with incredibly sharp teeth. The rake's arms have hands with unnaturally long fingers that end in razor-sharp claws. While the rake is a formidable enemy with some effective weapons, it's not really strong or fast as it relies on ambushing its victims, so theoretically, if you had a lead pipe, you could probably turn this thing's head into a mushy red stain without much effort. The rake was first popularly reported in the 12th century. Some reports say it just curiously observes people, whereas some reports say it attacks them. It usually visits people in their sleep and crouches at the foot of their bed, and when they awake, the rake will touch the victim, causing a sense of deep empathy or incredible fear. My all-time favorite creepypasta is the Russian sleep experiment. And it goes a little something like this. World War II Soviet Mother Russia scientists undertook an experiment involving a stimulant gas that can keep people awake indefinitely. The goal was to see if a person could stay awake for 30 days on this gas and to determine the effects of extreme sleep deprivation. The hope was that if this went well, which I'm not sure how anyone thought this was a good idea, they could use it on soldiers instead of the meth like they actually did, which every history teacher ever just forgot to mention. The subjects were prisoners of war, who were falsely promised they'd be let go if they completed the 30-day experiment. This was great for the scientific process because it lets us get rid of that pesky morality in exchange for patriotism. The 5 subjects were in a sealed compartment chamber that would be consistently filled with gas. The room was stocked with all basic human necessities for living, including books for entertainment and a toilet where they could be watched by 4 other men while making stool. The only way to know what's going on in the test chamber was by microphone feed, reading oxygen monitors, and looking through opaque, thick porthole-like windows. Things are pretty chill for like the first 3 days, but on the 4th day, all discussion has changed to the horrors that traumatized the men at war. On day 5, all subjects begin to show signs of psychosis and hallucinations. They start to distrust each other and whisper into the monitoring microphones, telling unsettling stories about their fellow guinea pigs. On day 9, one subject began screaming as loud as they could and kept doing it until they ruptured their vocal cords, leaving them permanently sounding like a squeaky dog toy. A few days pass and all is silent. They can't see the men anywhere in the big human hamster cage. They thought the microphones weren't working, so they inform the subjects that they need to lie down and get away from the door for them to test the mic, and cooperation will allow one of them to be freed immediately. A lone raspy voice replies with, "We no longer want to be free." They thought this state may have been induced because of the gas, and they promptly vented it out and replaced it with fresh air. Immediately as they did this, every subject that still had their voice pleaded to keep the gas on like their life depended on it. On day 15, they opened the doors to see one of the men dead and torn open with the 4 others standing around him cannibalizing the body. Every person in the big human fish tank looks like they'd been dropped in a blender, and some of them looked like they did it to themselves. People had ripped skin and chunks of flesh off of their body in areas including but not limited to the chest, leaving their organs bare, and the fingertips, leaving only the exposed ends of the bones. Internal organs were meticulously arranged on the floor like an art installation while the men ate them, some of which were still attached to the bodies and functioning. The researchers immediately slammed the door to the holding cell as the men again demanded that the gas be turned back on. Soldiers were called in to remove the subjects, and a brawl ensued where the subjects displayed an almost supernatural strength. One soldier had their throat ripped out, but consider this guy lucky. At least he's at peace now, unlike the other guy who got his testicles ripped from his body like he bought a pet chimpanzee despite all warnings from biologists. They put enough morphine into the subjects to KO Big Chungus, and they still fought ravenously. Eventually, they were subdued and brought to the hospital. On the operating table, one was given anesthesia, and then upon falling asleep, his heart promptly stopped and he died. They tried fixing up one of them without anesthesia, and he smiled at a nurse during the surgery. She heard him trying to speak, by the way, this was the squeaky toy one, and she handed him a pencil and pad. Fantastic nursing, handing a drugged up psychopath with superhuman strength a sharp object. It wasn't even worth it. He just wrote down "keep cutting," and for some reason didn't even think to stab anyone with the pencil. Wow, Squeaky, what a great horror villain chillin' you are. What are you, new to this? They thought, screw him, and put him back on the gas. After which, they were chillin' for a sec, but then one guy just up and died. Then a researcher freaks out and asks the last remaining subject what he is, and then he goes on a rant and claims to be madness itself. The researcher apparently didn't like this answer and just shot him in the face. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. If you liked this video, you should subscribe and comment and drop me a like. If you heard a buzzing noise in the background, it's because one of my neighbors is just awful. I don't even know these particular neighbors, but they have a noisy machine on their property somewhere, and it makes me angry. And now it just turned off! Okay, you just want to turn it on and off the entire time and do the whole thing. Now I need to record the audio again. God damn it! I want to thank AzFk for drawing Dr. Zimmerman and also our protagonist, YouTube Jesus. He's a great artist and he makes videos. You should check out his page. I also want to thank Supik. He's a great artist and he created That Scientist way back in the Animals Get Lit for Science videos. And it kind of fit the vibe, so I used it again. He's also a great artist and you should check out his page. I'll link them both in the end card. By the way, we had 2 creepy wins in a row, 2 weeks in a row in the polls. Do you guys like horror comedy videos more than the other types? Just let me know in the comments. As always, like, sub, and hit the bell, and I will see you all in hell. My chair's creaky. Okay, hi.
Ah! Good God! It's hideous. Beautiful in an ugly way, but mostly hideous. It's sad, really. I would feel bad for you if I didn't feel so good being me. Whenever an honest is hungry, they reach for this. It really quenches their thirst and hunger, because they're hungry.